The alien world of Leora was filled with bright towers, glowing rivers, and skies that shimmered with silver light. It was a place of beauty, a place where perfection was worshipped. But among all the shining faces of her people, there was one girl who never felt she belonged. Her name was Sarai. She was the daughter of a noble family, yet she was never praised like the others. Her people whispered behind her back, calling her plain, unworthy, and cursed. From childhood, Sarai learned to keep her head low, to hide her face under long veils. When others laughed and celebrated their beauty, she stayed silent. In a society where beauty was everything, Sarai was invisible. Every day, she walked past crystal mirrors that lined the palace walls. Each reflection reminded her of the words spoken by her people. "You are not beautiful. You will never be chosen." She had stopped believing in herself long ago. Instead, she lived in shadows, drifting quietly through life. She thought this was her fate, to be forgotten. But fate was about to change. Far above the skies of Leora, strange signals had been detected. Unknown ships were approaching, moving through the void with fire in their engines. The Council of Elders gathered in fear, whispering about invaders. Rumors spread fast, echoing through the towers and marketplaces. Some said it was the hostile empire that had destroyed other worlds. Others claimed it was a new force, something different, something human. Sarai heard these whispers too. Her heart raced with both fear and curiosity. For the first time in her life, she felt something inside her stir. Perhaps because she had nothing to lose, she longed to see these strangers. One night, as the city prepared its defenses, Sarai climbed to the highest balcony of her family's palace. From there, she saw them, tiny lights piercing the darkness of the heavens. The ships were sleek, built of steel and strength, nothing like the delicate crystal vessels of her people. Her breath caught in her throat. The unknown had arrived. The next morning, the humans landed. Their machines roared as they touched the alien soil. Crowds gathered, some shouting in anger, others trembling in awe. The humans stepped forward, tall, armored, carrying strange weapons. Their faces were not perfect like the aliens. Their features were rugged, their eyes sharp and alive. Sarai hid behind a column, watching. She felt something she had never felt before. Fascination. Her people mocked the humans, calling them ugly, primitive, and dangerous. But Sarai could not look away. There was a fire in their eyes, a strength she had never seen in her own people. As the human commander spoke with the elders, Sarai leaned forward, curious. And then it happened. One of the human soldiers turned, his gaze falling upon her. For a moment, Sarai froze, her veil slipping slightly from her face. She expected him to look away in disgust, the way her own people always did. But he didn't. The soldier smiled. His eyes softened, and with a gentle voice, he whispered a word that struck her heart like lightning. Beautiful. Sarai's world stopped. The word echoed in her mind again and again. No one had ever said that to her, not once in her entire life. Her people had called her plain, cursed, unworthy, but never beautiful. And now, a stranger from another world had spoken it, as if it was the simplest truth. She pulled her veil tightly back over her face, trembling. Her heart pounded so loudly she thought everyone could hear it. Why would a human say such a thing? Why would someone who owed her nothing see beauty in her? The crowd dispersed. The humans were escorted to the council chambers, and Sarai remained hidden in the shadows. But inside her, something had changed. For the first time in her life, she questioned the voices that had ruled her existence. Maybe, just maybe, she was not what her people said she was. Maybe she had been blind to herself all along. That night, Sarai could not sleep. The word kept burning in her mind. Beautiful. She whispered it to herself again and again, as if testing its weight. Tears filled her eyes, not of sadness, but of something strange, hope. Far above, the stars shone brighter than ever. The humans had come, and with them, a truth she had never dared to dream. The truth that beauty was not only in mirrors, not only in flawless skin or perfect faces, but perhaps beauty was something deeper, something her people had never understood. And Sarai would soon learn that humanity had brought more than just weapons and machines to her world. They had brought a new way of seeing, a new way of living. And for her, it was the beginning of everything. The arrival of the humans shook the city of Leora like an earthquake. The crystal towers glimmered in fear as rumors spread through every street. The elders whispered of danger. The merchants cursed the intruders, and the common people gathered in crowds to see the strange visitors. But in the middle of the noise and chaos, Sarai's mind was trapped on a single word: beautiful. She had replayed that moment in her thoughts all night. The soldier's voice, calm and steady, echoing across her heart. Her people had always looked through her as if she did not exist, yet a human, a complete stranger, had seen her differently. She did not know whether to believe it or bury it deep, but her heart refused to let it go. The next day, the humans were escorted into the Hall of Glass, the great chamber of the elders. The walls of the chamber reflected everything like mirrors, casting sharp, perfect images of the elders who sat in judgment. Sarai stayed hidden behind a carved column, half her face covered by her veil. Her heart raced as she watched the meeting unfold. The human commander stood tall, his uniform marked with strange symbols of rank. His voice was strong, but not cruel, as he spoke of peace, trade, and unity. He explained that humanity did not come to conquer, but to share knowledge, to stand together against the empire that threatened all free worlds. But the elders sneered. "We do not need savages," one of them hissed. "You are flawed, scarred, and crude," said another, their voices full of disdain. They looked upon the humans as insects who had stumbled into the halls of gods. The humans, however, did not lower their heads. Their commander simply said, "We are not perfect, but we are strong, and together we can be stronger." His words rang with courage, and for the first time, Sarai felt a strange warmth in her chest. But her people laughed. "Strength without beauty is worthless," an elder declared. The chamber filled with mocking smiles and polished voices. Sarai's fists clenched at her sides, her breath shaking. How could they not see what she saw? These humans carried something her people had long forgotten: dignity, courage, and fire. As the meeting ended, the humans were led back to their quarters, guarded and watched closely. Sarai followed in silence, her heart pulling her forward. When she turned a corner, she nearly collided with the soldier who had spoken the word that haunted her. He looked at her again, and once more, his gaze did not turn away in disgust. He smiled faintly, a small, human smile that held more honesty than all the polished words of the elders. "You," he said softly, "you're not like the others." Sarai's breath caught. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why do you say that?" The soldier tilted his head. "Because when I look at you, I see something real." She felt heat rise to her cheeks, hidden under the veil. No one had ever spoken to her like this. For a moment, she forgot the halls, the guards, the fear, and simply stood frozen under the weight of his words. But their moment did not last. A guard shouted from behind, "You there, girl! Step away from the strangers." Sarai quickly lowered her gaze and turned, her heart pounding. She walked fast, her mind spinning. What was happening to her? Why did a single word from a human shake her entire soul? That evening, she sat in her chamber, staring at her reflection in a glass bowl of water. Her people's voice echoed in her mind, plain, cursed, unworthy. But the human's voice cut through like fire, beautiful. For the first time in her life, she questioned who was truly blind, her or her people. Outside the palace, unrest was rising. The people of Leora shouted in the streets, demanding that the humans be expelled. They feared contamination of their perfect society. Yet in the shadows, a quiet group whispered of hope. They had seen the humans' machines, their strength, their strange spirit. Some wondered if perhaps these strangers could protect them from the empire that grew nearer each day. Sarai listened to these whispers from her balcony. The air was tense, the stars above restless. Her world was at a turning point, and somehow she knew she was caught at the center of it. She looked to the heavens where the human ships floated in orbit, and for the first time, she did not feel small or invisible. She felt a spark inside her, fragile but alive. A spark lit by humanity's eyes, by their voice, by a single word that her own people could never speak. Beautiful, she whispered again into the night, and though fear clung to her heart, she knew her life had already changed forever. The days after the humans' arrival grew heavy with tension. The elders of Leora rejected their offers of unity, mocking them as savages with no place in a perfect world. But beyond the shining towers, danger moved closer. The hostile empire that had already crushed other systems was now turning its gaze toward Leora. The signs were clear: strange signals in the outer skies, scouts destroyed, silence from nearby colonies. Inside the city, fear whispered in every corner. Merchants argued in the marketplaces, nobles demanded more guards, and the elders locked themselves in endless debates. But Sarai knew the truth her people refused to say aloud. Leora was not ready. Their society of mirrors and beauty had grown weak. They had no warriors, no true defenses, only crystal ships made for display, not war. The humans, however, carried weapons, machines, and above all, courage. They were not flawless, but they were prepared. And for this reason, the elders reluctantly agreed to one thing: allowing a joint scouting mission into the dark regions of space where the enemy was said to gather. Sarai listened quietly when her father spoke of it during the family council. "The humans will take the lead," he said with disdain. "Our soldiers will join them only to watch, nothing more." The others agreed, nodding, their faces cold and polished. But Sarai felt something stir, a pull inside her chest. This mission was more than just patrol. It was the beginning of something greater. The next morning, Sarai found herself walking toward the docking bay, though she had no reason to be there. Rows of human soldiers moved with precision, preparing their gear. Alien guards stood stiffly beside them, sneering with silent judgment. And then she saw him, the soldier who had called her beautiful. He adjusted his armor, unaware of her gaze, until his eyes found hers. For a moment, the noise of the bay faded away. He gave her a nod, not mockery, not pity, but recognition. Her heart raced, and before she could stop herself, she stepped closer. "You're going with them?" she asked softly, her voice trembling behind a veil. "Yes," he said, his tone steady. "It's dangerous, but we have no choice." Sarai's hands curled into fists. "My people, they do not trust you." He gave a faint smile. "They don't have to. Not yet. Trust is earned in the fire." Those words struck her deeply. Trust was not born of perfection or appearance, but of action. It was something her people had long forgotten. The mission began at dawn. A fleet of human ships rose into the sky, accompanied by a handful of crystal vessels from Leora. Sarai watched from the balcony, her breath tight. The silver sky split as engines roared, carrying them into the unknown. Hours passed with silence, until word came back through the channels. Contact. The enemy had been found on the edge of the system, a swarm of dark ships gathering like vultures. The humans held formation, scanning, reporting calmly, but the alien crews panicked, their voices shaking over the comms. Sarai could hear the fear, even from the palace halls. Suddenly, static filled the air, followed by screams. One of the alien ships had broken formation, drifting too close. The enemy seized the moment, striking with ruthless precision. Lasers cut across the void, tearing through crystal hulls like paper. Chaos erupted. The humans reacted instantly, pulling their ships into a shield wall to protect the remaining vessels. Their voices were calm, commanding, each order sharp and clear. But Sarai could hear the fear in her people, begging, pleading, retreating. It was then that she realized the truth. Without the humans, they would already be lost. Back in the docking bay, alarms blared as wounded ships limped home. Sarai rushed to see who had survived. The air was thick with smoke, the ground trembling with the return of damaged craft. And there, stepping out of one of the human transports, was the soldier, his armor scorched, his face streaked with ash. Yet he stood tall, steady, unbroken. Sarai's breath caught in her chest. Around him, alien soldiers collapsed in despair, crying of defeat. But the humans moved with quiet strength, helping the injured, repairing what they could, refusing to surrender. For the first time, Sarai's people looked at the humans not with scorn, but with unease. They had seen courage that their mirrors could never reflect. And though they would not say it aloud, something had changed in their eyes. That night, as Sarai walked through the dim corridors of the palace, she thought of the soldier's words. Trust is earned in the fire. Her people still saw her as plain, unworthy, invisible. But the humans had shown her another way. Perhaps, like them, she too could find strength not in beauty, but in courage. The enemy was coming, and her world would soon burn. But deep inside, Sarai felt a spark that refused to die. A spark that whispered her story was only beginning. The attack on the scouting fleet left the city of Leora shaken. 3 crystal ships had been lost, their remains drifting silently in the void. The elders tried to hide the truth with polished words, claiming the humans had failed. But everyone who had seen the battle knew the reality. Without the humans, none of the ships would have returned at all. Sarai watched the chaos unfold from the palace balconies. Her people whispered in fear, some calling for war, others demanding retreat. The elders quarreled, but none of their words mattered anymore. The empire was coming, and their mirrors could not protect them. For Sarai, the images of the battle would not leave her mind. The calm voices of the humans guiding panicked soldiers. The way their ships shielded others instead of saving themselves. And most of all, the soldier's face, scarred, tired, yet unbroken. Her people mocked imperfection, but to her, those scars told a story of strength. Days passed, and the humans remained in the city, working tirelessly. They trained their soldiers, repaired their ships, and mapped the enemy's movements. Unlike the elders, they wasted no time in empty speeches. They acted, and every action carried weight. Sarai could not stay away. Drawn by curiosity and something deeper, she began to visit the human camp at the edge of the city. At first, she hid in the shadows, watching them move. But slowly, she stepped closer, and the humans did not push her away. They greeted her, some with smiles, others with nods of respect. No one mocked her veil, no one turned their eyes with scorn. Instead, they treated her as if she belonged. One evening, she sat near their fire as the soldier, the one who had called her beautiful, spoke to her. He told her of Earth, a world of oceans, forests, and skies as blue as crystal rivers. He spoke of families who lived not for perfection, but for survival, love, and dreams. Sarai listened with wide eyes. In his stories, beauty was not only in faces but in courage, kindness, and the will to fight for others. You don't have to hide, he said gently. You are more than what they say. Sarai's heart trembled. Could it be true? Could beauty live beyond the flawless image her people worshipped? The next day, she dared to do something unthinkable. She pulled her veil lower, revealing more of her face while walking among the humans. She expected laughter or pity, but instead she saw warmth. One woman smiled and said, "You have strong eyes." Another man nodded respectfully. "You remind me of my sister. She never gives up." Tears filled Sarai's eyes, not of pain, but of relief. She had never known words like these, words that spoke not of her flaws, but of her spirit. Meanwhile, tension in the city grew sharper. The Empire's fleets were moving closer, and fear turned to anger. Some nobles blamed the humans, saying their presence had attracted danger. Others whispered that maybe the humans were the only hope left. Sarai heard both voices, but she knew the truth. Her people were blind, chained to their mirrors. They would never see clearly until it was too late. That night, as the stars glimmered above, Sarai stood with the soldier on the balcony of the human camp. "You fight even when others mock you," she said softly. He looked at her, his eyes steady. "Because what they say doesn't matter. What matters is what we choose to be." Those words burned into her soul. All her life, she had been what others called her, plain, cursed, invisible. But now, for the first time, she began to imagine who she could choose to be. As the two stood in silence, a sudden alarm echoed through the city. The humans rushed to their stations, weapons ready. Above the horizon, shadows appeared, enemy scouts breaking through the outer defenses. The Empire was closer than anyone had feared. The battle for Leora was about to begin. Sarai gripped the railing, her heart pounding. The humans did not run, they did not hide. They prepared to face the storm. And Sarai realized that the courage she saw in them was beginning to rise within her too. For the first time in her life, she was not only a shadow, she was a spark waiting to burn. The first attack came without warning. In the silver skies of Leora, enemy ships cut through the clouds like knives, their black hulls glowing red with fire. The alarms of the city screamed, shaking towers and echoing through every street. The elders panicked, shouting commands no one followed. The people fled to the underground shelters, their polished masks of beauty falling away, replaced with raw fear. The humans did not hesitate. They raced to their ships, armor gleaming, weapons charged, voices steady even as death closed in. Their commander's voice rang through the comms. "Hold the line, protect the civilians, no retreat." And they obeyed without question. Sarai watched from the palace balconies, her heart hammering in her chest. Her people had spent their lives worshipping mirrors, but now those mirrors shattered in the face of war. They were helpless, unprepared, blind. But the humans fought with a fire she had never seen. The battle erupted in the skies. Laser beams streaked across the clouds. Explosions tore holes in the towers, and the air burned with smoke. The human ships formed tight formations, holding back the enemy. But they were outnumbered, the Empire's swarm stretching across the horizon like a storm. In the chaos, Sarai heard the voices of her people crying, "We are doomed. We cannot win." Her fists clenched, anger boiling in her chest. Was this all they were? A people of fear and beauty, crumbling when the truth came crashing down? She turned and ran, her feet carrying her not to the shelters, but to the human camp. There she found the soldier, the one whose words had changed her life. His armor was scorched, his face marked with sweat, but his eyes burned bright. "Why are you here?" he shouted above the roar of engines. "Because I cannot hide anymore," she cried. His gaze locked on hers, steady and fierce. "Then stand with us." Sarai climbed aboard a transport, her heart trembling. The humans did not question her. They simply moved aside, making space. For the first time in her life, she was not treated as a burden, but as one of them. The transport soared into the burning sky, weaving between falling towers and enemy fire. Sarai gripped the rail, her breath sharp. Below, she saw her people running, their perfect robes torn, their flawless faces twisted in terror. Above, she saw the humans fighting, their imperfect bodies scarred, yet unbroken. The Empire's ships closed in, surrounding the transport. A blast tore through the hull, alarms screamed, and flames spread across the cabin. The soldier grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the emergency bay. "We have to jump," he said. Sarai's heart raced. "Jump? Into the fire?" His voice was calm, unshaken. "Trust me." And for the first time she did. Together they leapt as the transport exploded behind them, crashing into the streets below. They rolled across the ground, smoke and ash filling the air. Sarai coughed, her lungs burning, but she was alive. And beside her, the soldier stood, already raising his weapon to fight again. The enemy soldiers landed, dark armored figures moving like shadows through the flames. Her people screamed and ran, But Sarai did not. She picked up a fallen weapon from the ground, her hands shaking. Her people had always told her she was weak, invisible, cursed. But in that moment, with fire all around, she chose something different. She stood beside the humans, her veil torn, her face revealed, her eyes burning with a courage she never knew she had. And when the enemy charged, she raised a weapon and fired. The blast struck true, sending one of the armored figures crashing into the dust. For the first time in her life, her people saw her not as a shadow, but as a flame. The battle raged through the night. Humans and Sarai fought side by side, their strength pushing back against the Empire's storm. Every scar, every scream, every step was proof that beauty was not in mirrors, but in courage. And though the city burned, hope burned brighter still. As dawn rose, the skies were still filled with smoke. The enemy had not yet been defeated, but the people of Leora had witnessed something undeniable. Sarai, the girl they once called cursed, had stood in the fire with humanity. And in that fire, the truth was revealed. She was not invisible, not weak, not unworthy. She was something greater. The smoke of battle still hung over Leora when the enemy struck again. This time, they did not come with fire raining from the skies. They came with shadows, slipping through the broken towers and shattered streets. Their goal was not to destroy the city. It was to capture hope itself. Sarai had fought beside the humans until dawn, her arms aching, her body trembling, yet her spirit alive. But when the second wave of soldiers descended, they moved with a deadly precision. Dark figures surrounded her, their blades and armor glowing with crimson light. The human soldier, the one who had given her the word beautiful, fought to reach her, but the enemy closed in. Sarai fired until her weapon burned hot, but she was outnumbered. A blast struck the ground beside her, throwing her into the dust. Before she could rise, they seized her arms, chains of energy binding her. She was dragged into the shadows as the soldier's voice shouted her name. The city watched in silence as the enemy retreated with their prize. The girl once forgotten, now seen, was taken. The elders muttered that she was worthless, that no rescue should be risked for someone like her. But the humans thought differently. In their camp, the commander stood before his weary soldiers. "We leave no one behind," he said firmly. "She fought with us, she stood with us, and now we stand for her." His words lit fire in every heart. The humans prepared for a mission more dangerous than any battle before. They would enter the enemy's stronghold and bring Sarai back. Inside the dark fortress above Leora's orbit, Sarai was locked in a chamber of steel. The enemy leader stood before her, his voice cold. "You are nothing," he hissed, "a weakling among weaklings. We will show your people how foolish it is to trust in humans or in you." But Sarai, though chained, did not lower her gaze. Her heart remembered the soldier's voice, steady and warm. "You are more than what they say." And for the first time, she believed it. Hours passed, until the silence of the fortress broke with fire. Explosions tore through the halls, alarms blared, and shadows raced across the walls. The humans had come. Sarai's heart leapt. Against all odds, they had not abandoned her. The door of her chamber burst open, and there he stood. The soldier, his armor battered, his weapon glowing with heat. For a moment, the world faded, and all she saw was him. "You came back," she whispered, her voice trembling. He smiled faintly. "Even in the chaos, of course. We don't leave our own behind." Blasts echoed as enemy guards swarmed the corridors. The humans fought with relentless strength, covering each other, pushing forward as one. The soldier shattered her chains, pulling her to her feet. "Can you run?" he asked. "Yes," she said, though her legs trembled. "Then run with us." Together they raced through the burning halls, humans shielding her from every strike. One fell, then another, but none faltered. Their courage was not built on perfection, but on sacrifice. And Sarai understood. This was the truth of humanity. Not flawless faces, but hearts that refused to surrender. They reached the hangar as enemy ships closed in. The soldier turned to her, gripping her hand. "You are not just beautiful," he said fiercely. "You are brave, braver than anyone I've ever known." Her eyes burned with tears, not of fear, but of something stronger. For the first time, she believed every word. As the humans fought their way to the escape craft, Sarai fired a weapon herself, striking down one of her captors. Her people would have called it ugly, crude, dishonorable. But to her it felt like freedom. She was no longer a shadow hiding in veils. She was alive, strong, seen. The escape craft roared into the skies, breaking through the fortress as it exploded in flames behind them. The humans cheered, battered but unbroken, and Sarai sat among them, her hands still trembling, but her spirit burning brighter than ever. She had been taken as nothing, but returned as something her people could never deny. A spark of hope, carried on the wings of humanity. The fortress burned in orbit, its fire lighting the skies of Leora like a second sun. But victory was not yet theirs. The Empire's fleet still surrounded the planet, a storm of dark ships waiting to crush what remained. The humans and the people of Leora had only one chance, to stand together or fall apart forever. In a council chamber, the elders argued as always, their voices sharp and empty. "Retreat. Hide. Surrender," they cried, their polished masks trembling with fear. But then Sarai entered, her steps steady, her veil torn and her face revealed. The chamber fell silent. The girl they had once mocked as plain now stood before them with fire in her eyes. She was no longer a shadow. They could not ignore her. "You hide behind mirrors," she said, her voice carrying across the chamber. "But mirrors do not fight for us. Humanity fights for us. And so will I." Gasps echoed through the room, but she did not falter. "If you still call me cursed, then so be it. I will stand with the humans, with courage, not with fear." Her words spread like fire through the city. The common people, once lost in despair, lifted their heads. They whispered her name not with scorn, but with hope. And when the humans prepared for the final battle, hundreds of Lyarans stepped forward, ready to fight beside them. The fleet rose into the sky, human steel and alien crystal flying as one. Sarai joined the command vessel, her hands trembling but her heart unbroken. The soldier stood beside her, his voice steady. "Are you ready?" She met his gaze, and for the first time she smiled. "Yes," she said, "I am ready." The enemy descended, their swarm filling the heavens. The battle began with thunder. Explosions lit the sky, ships tore through the clouds, and the world shook with fire. The humans fought as they always had, side by side, never leaving one another. And for the first time, the people of Leora did the same. They shielded, they covered, they sacrificed. Beauty was no longer in perfection, but in unity. In the heart of the storm, the enemy flagship appeared, a massive blade of steel. Its cannons burned with enough power to shatter the city below. Panic spread through the Lyran fleet, but Sarai's voice rose over the calms. "Do not run. Do not hide. Stand with humanity. Stand with me." Her words cut through fear like light through darkness. The fleets rallied, forming a wall of steel and crystal against the Empire's might. The flagship fired, tearing holes in the defense. But the humans pushed forward, guiding the Lyran step by step. Sarai herself stood at the controls, her hands steady. For once, no one doubted her, no one mocked her. They followed her voice, her courage, her truth. Together they struck back, wave after wave, their ships cut through the enemy lines. The flagship trembled under their assault, and with one final united strike, the combined fleet shattered it into fire. The Empire's swarm broke apart, retreating into the void. Silence followed, broken only by cheers that shook the heavens. The humans embraced one another, their scars gleaming with pride. The Lyarans wept, for they had seen a beauty greater than mirrors could ever show. When the fleet returned, the people gathered in the ruins of the great plaza. They looked to Sarai, the girl they had once called plain, now standing tall beside humanity. The crowd bowed, and voices rose, calling her not cursed, not unworthy, but something new. Princess of Hope, they cried. Her heart ached with tears, for she finally understood. She had never been invisible, never been worthless. She had only been waiting for someone to show her the truth. That night, as the stars shimmered above the healed city, Sarai stood with the soldier. He smiled at her, his eyes warm. "You were always beautiful," he said softly. She looked at her reflection in the broken crystal of a ruined tower. For the first time, she did not see flaws. She saw strength, courage, and hope. And at last she believed it.